I am back in the Hollywood Hills with my friend Charles Malki from Ivy Organic. And Charles has just given a class to the Hollywood Hills Knolls.
It's called the Hollywood Knolls?
Hollywood Knolls Garden Club.
Yes.
And you're going to take a look at that right now.
Enjoy.
On the big farms like in the Central Valley, we'll just throw down, you know, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The plants will take it up, but if you've noticed the taste isn't the same when you pull it out of the market, it's because of the fact that that they don't have that level of mycorrhizae on here that allows them to take up all the micronutrients and all the other good stuff, and so they don't have that flavor. They're not mineral rich. They can't take up everything, and that's the important part of the mycorrhizae, is that with the root hormone, it helps push the roots out. Your plants grow faster, they grow better. With the mycorrhizae on the root system, it will help, once it's growing faster, it'll help them uptake all the nutrients that are in the soil mix. If you're doing raised bed planting, you want as much as you can in there. You want the perfect soil so that you can be successful the first time around. I've seen so many people where they just dig soil out of their backyard and they mix it with horse manure and they fail.
Mushrooms typically sprout early spring, late winter, and then you don't see them the rest of the year, but the mycorrhizae are there 365 days a year. So think about that mushroom creating those roots, which are also known as hyphae, but mycorrhiza is that interaction between the mushroom and the plant. So the mushroom root will span one of those plants 1,000 feet. So imagine now the network between all of the plants within your garden in just one little mushroom. So there's an amazing interaction which science has discovered between the mushroom and the plants. So when you're using products such as Roundup and other chemical products within your garden and you kill the one mushroom, you've done something very devastating to your whole organic biology within your garden.
Online, you can actually buy kits. Depending upon the plants you're growing, you can have them up to 3 foot tall. Some people have them shorter. Mine are going on top of concrete, and I think that's a great use of the old tennis court. Some people will put it right on top of the soil. Now, the difference is that if you're putting it on top of the soil, the earthworms can come from underneath into your soil mix. If you're building in the concrete like we're doing, I have to introduce them in there. And that's not a problem. They'll work. I just have to make sure I have good drainage. So raised bed can be built out of wood. It can be built out of cinder blocks. When you're choosing wood, you just have to be very careful, because even though pressure treated wood will hold up the longest, it also has chemicals in it. The chemicals can leach out into your soil and obviously go into your vegetables. Cedar wood is actually pretty durable and can hold up. For the ground, you would want what would be called a planting mixer, a soil conditioner. A typical raised bed planter would be rectangular, 4 foot across and 8 foot long. The reason being is they figured out that is as far as somebody can reach from each side, and you want to be able to access it. You keep them apart so you can sit down on the edge and reach in 2 feet from either side. So that's the optimum. Some people have them down to 3 feet. It's easier to get to. It just depends on what your layout is, but you have to think this thing through. Also, you want to take a look at the direction that the sun is coming. So if you were in the backyard here, you might sit out come out at different times of the day and watch the arc of the sun at different times of the year, and think about what you want to grow, because obviously some of these vegetables need 6 hours of light a day, so you have to think about the placement of it, the arc, and you would position your planting beds accordingly. If you're doing raised beds, you could even just do one raised bed planting if you wanted to, but if you're planning to do several of them, think about your exposure, think about your placement, think about what you want to grow. My recommendation is that you use it all year round. So right now you could be planting cukes, you could be planting, we're talking about tomatoes, snap peas, along those lines, any kind of warm weather vegetables. As you get into the fall, you could be doing more kind of like the root crops. You could be planting beets, carrots, along those lines. And there's charts that you can get, but you always, if you want to keep cycling through so that bed's always in use. There's always vegetables you can put in there at different times of the year. You want to loosen that soil up a little bit so you create the air particles, because plants do need air in the root zone. They do need air, so that's important. So that's what you're trying to achieve with the planting mix. open up put air spaces. Water retention we don't have to worry about so much with our soils because the particles are very fine up here. And then enrich the soil with organic material that will break down and feed the microorganisms as well as the plants. So there is a difference, and you should be using the right product for the right application.
It all started here, and I just want to thank you guys. And Brad's been a huge hand in our success. Like pretty much all of you that have talked to me. Elizabeth Crafton, she's helped with some of the initial editing. I gave her a can. She's like, you realize there's mistakes all over your label of she and her husband. And there's already thousands of cans out there. And this was at the beginning. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I think I spelled vile. I remember that was one of the words you found. Mulch is the #1, in my opinion, most important thing you can do for your plants. First and foremost, it's free. I even gave you an address where you can go, which is the Griffith Park Compost Facility at 5400 Griffith Park Drive. The other benefits of mulch is, 1, it'll save you time. Any ideas how it'll save you some time? Weeding. You'll basically cut back on your weeds anywhere from about 50 to 70, 80% of the weeds within your property will be eliminated by simply putting a good 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch. The second one is it saves you money. How's it going to save you money? Water is the big one. It's going to save at least 50% off your water bill. So that's money saved. And also imagine you're traveling, which a lot of us do. You can leave your plants with more comfort knowing that they've got wood chips to basically round those days that you're also watering your plants. So in the summer, it's keeping your soil cooler. In the winter, it's doing the opposite. It's keeping the soil warmer. So it's basically rounding the extremes of the temperature by having a layer of wood chips. That was once a tree, and all of the elements that went into making the tree is now breaking down, and you're returning all of those elements back into the soil to benefit all of the surrounding plants. So you pretty much have everything that the plant otherwise needs in the wood chips going back into the soil and benefiting all of the surrounding plants. Putting a nice blanket 2 to 3 inches of mulch, you're actually going to be further improving the success of mycorrhiza and mushrooms within the underground network. So worms are also part of that life, and the third one is beneficial bacteria. So the earthworm, if I had a handful of soil here in my hands, I might have 1, 2, 3 earthworms in it, but I'm going to have billions of beneficial bacteria that are doing pretty much the same thing. They're gobbling up all of the dead organic material within the soil, and they're also creating that waste, manure, just like that earthworm is, enriching the soil and improving the whole dynamics of the soil structures. So supports your soil biology includes the beneficial bacteria, the earthworms, and then the mycorrhiza that exist. Adding a blanket of wood chips around your avocados will reduce the risk of root rot because of all the beneficial life that it will attract, that'll pretty much gobble up and get rid of. One other thing I want to say about having worms within your soil is that worms, when they create their manure, their waste, also known as castings, is it has chitinase, which is an enzyme which the plants absorb, and when the insects go to chew on your plants, the exoskeleton of all of these insects, whether they be beetles or grasshoppers or whatever they are, but their bodies are made out of chitin. So what happens when they chew on a leaf that has chitinase in it? Any guesses?
Breaks down their body.
It breaks down their body. Basically, the chitinase is an enzyme that breaks down chitin. So now this insect that's trying to get stronger by eating your plants is getting weaker. So when pruning your trees, consider pruning your plants by a minimum of 5 to 10% per year. The logic behind it is you want to have a root base structure of the plant that's larger than the above ground tree structure. For example, if you move a plant from one part of your garden to another part of the garden, what's more likely going to happen is you're going to end up losing a lot of the roots compared to the canopy. And what a lot of growers will do is they'll end up pruning a lot of the above ground structure to offset the stress to the root damage. And especially like city trees, for example, where the roots are confined or restricted, even within a backyard, you might be digging and pruning some roots to make way for planting beds and other projects within your property. But the root structure should always be larger than the above ground structure, and you accomplish that by way of pruning. And it's a good practice at the end of winter before spring to always prune your plants a minimum of 5 to 10% a year. So when it comes to feeding your plants, figure that you should pace yourselves according to the activity of the plant. I basically drew a mountain here, and on one side I've got fertilizer, and on the bottom I wrote the season. So at the beginning of the season, being the cooler months, January, February, or even December, you're not going to feed. With your plants that are always green, evergreen, such as your citrus, your camellias, you can do a foliar nutritional feed. Would be a way of getting elements into the plant, as the leaves will serve as sponges and uptake the nutrients. But as you get into spring, I usually don't recommend applying whatever the recommended dose is on the back. Start slow, just like you do when you wake up. You don't start off with the biggest meal of the day. You start slow in spring. You're feeding, keep in mind, the soil biology, and the soil is still relatively cool to what it's going to be in another couple of months. So you're feeding the soil biology, and the biology is waking up. They're also reproducing and multiplying like crazy. If you have the time, you can actually cut back on the recommended dose and just do it more frequently. But keep in mind the concentrations are going to be closer to the label by May going into summer than it would be early spring, late fall, and definitely not in the winter. In the winter season, you're otherwise supposed to take a break from fertilizing your plants, aside from a foliar nutritional feed on your evergreens. Again, try to avoid the poisons, as it doesn't just affect you and your property, and if that poison gets in your soil, you're compromising. If you read the directions on a lot of these products that are here, they're like, keep it away from food, and that's Brad and I's specialty, is to grow a lot of fruits and a lot of vegetables. You're growing medicine, you're growing food that's very important for your health and nutrition, as that food is alive. You're picking it in the morning and you're eating it for lunch, compared to the stuff at the store that was picked days and weeks, if not months ago, and been dying ever since they picked it. I brought with me some Roma tomatoes, and Roma is a variety that's known for being determinate. So it's going to grow, it's going to flower, and it's going to fruit all within a good short 2 to 3 week period of time. You're going to harvest all the tomatoes, and then the plant's going to die. You're done. An indeterminate variety will continuously grow through the entire growing season, flowering and fruiting, which is what, in my opinion, I prefer. And I would think most of you would enjoy the fact you get to enjoy, tomatoes over an entire growing season, and just harvesting every single week, from ripe tomatoes, rather than just getting a bumper crop within 2 to 3 weeks. The other two varieties I got was a cherry variety, as well as the early grow variety tomatoes. And the early grow I always enjoy for the fact that they usually have nice clusters of about 4 to 6 tomatoes between each growing level as the plant continuously grows. Planting your tomatoes, what I want to share with you is the first thing I'm going to do, being these two are established, I know it's going to break some of your hearts to remove it, so what I'll do is just remove this smaller sucker at the bottom, which we can probably also plant. I'll keep these two, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the leaves on the bottom half. Unlike all your other vegetables, whether they be peppers, squash, lettuce, anything else that you plant, you typically want to plant at the same level as the container that you got it in. But when it comes to tomatoes, they benefit greatly by being planted deep.
Thanks so much for watching this channel and Charles's Ivy Organic channel, and make sure you like our videos, share them with your friends, and
subscribe, and don't forget to hit that push bell notification to get notification of these educational lessons as soon as they become made available.
That's awesome. And I got to meet a lot of the gardeners in the Hollywood Knolls Garden Club, and we are going to be seeing some more of these gardens in coming videos. So stay tuned for that, and thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.
Happy gardening. Here we go.
Thank you, Charles.
You're welcome.
Here
we go.
All right. And we have Allison Daguerre.
Yay. One more.
For the mousetrap.
Put the mousetrap in the bowl.
We have Bob Knox. Should we go for one more?
Let's go for one more.
Okay.
This
All right.
is rigged.
All right. Okay.
Bob and Sue are
Rosemary
next.
Smith.
Wonderful. Here we go.
Yay! What did I get?
Oh, you got the
Thank you.